Maybe Maestro is what they need to shore up that weakness.
I think as well give a voice to the team. Have someone who can be that strong shot caller. Because at the moment, Zeka's doing well, iBoy is doing well. It's the other members of the team that are really struggling. So maybe Maestro can just give that voice of reason, that little bit more to this team to help them in this scenario.
Well, we've seen this once or twice before, but Aphelios has made it through the bans, and it's going to be the first pick here. That's going into the pocket of iBoy. We've been saying that we want to see more out of him. This is the pick to do it on.
Maybe not so much when the Ornn is still up, though. Ornn does make it a little bit more difficult for Aphelios in these scenarios because it's hard to approach fights with the Call of the Forge God there. You start trying to play around an awful lot of these CCs that can come your direction. I'm assuming JDG are going to lock this in for 705. I'd be surprised if they didn't.
That's an interesting first pick, the Leona. It's not usually the sport that's prioritized to the point of just a first pick blind.
I think it works in this scenario because what are the ones that are left? You can go with the Thresh here if you really want to, but doesn't always do so hot into the Ornn. Then you're looking at the Nautilus, who Leona does do well into. Same with some of the picks like the Braum and that. So by locking in this early Leona, you deny it away from Maestro and giving them priority in the bottom side of the map and secure a strong lane in the Misfortune and the Leona, which I'm assuming is what JDG are going to go for.
Well, you'd expect that Vici will match the bottom lane prowess, but also look towards the jungle. Cheiftain going to grab himself a Jarvan 4. And I would assume that that will be matched on the side of JDG. They'll likely lock something in for Kanavi, but actually up towards the top side, we're going to get Cube and Aatrox.
Look, Cube has been a big issue for me when it comes to this team. I don't know what's happened to this guy. He looked so strong coming into the Demacia Cup, and then he came onto this team, and he's averaging 1,200 gold behind his lane opponent at 15 minutes. This guy is having the worst of games, and I don't know. I need to see something special come out, and if they're going to prioritize Aatrox for Cube, well, this has got to be something special.
Well, the Misfortune was locked in to go alongside that Leona there in the bottom lane. And now over towards the second ban phase. You mentioned the Braum already. With an Ornn on your side, it's a good ban to go for.
Yeah, look, it's going to work out pretty well for them. Getting rid of the Thresh, getting rid of the Braum. The only one that were still up and available that we kind of consider in those top tiers is the Nautilus or the Rakan, and both of them really suck into Leona.
Yeah, the Nautilus will do well to peel for Cube, though, if they do choose to go in that direction. We'll have to wait and see. Could see some spicy picks, something a bit different in that bottom lane. But the mid lane pool being pinched here so far by Vici Gaming, and Olaf taken off the board as the final jungler out of the pool that they want to remove.
It's a lot of pressure towards these jungle picks. I know you've got the Jarvan picked up on the opposite side, but you kind of got to wait and see now. What do JDG want to go for? I don't like them picking up the solo laner here. I think you just take take your jungler here, then you can still get the counter pick, but they really want the Zoe for Yagao. And
that's one of the things about Zoe, is it is safe. In that blind pick scenario, you can just go for the Zoe, and it'll pretty much work into most of the matchups. You don't have any pressure on your jungle pick anyway because Cheiftain already locked in the Jarvan.
Yeah, I thought that this might be coming with the Jarvan locked in. Rumble could be the pick. Now, Zoe will win out in this matchup when it comes to the push and shove, but that mid game where you start to get those two items on Aphelios, now you got your Rumble there. Aatrox, Jarvan, Vici are hitting hard when it comes to that 20-minute mark.
Well, you can see Maestro cycling through the available supports, and you already mentioned it, Dagda. There's not that many options available that look that good. And the Leona first pick for JDG, I kind of criticized it, but so far it's looking pretty great.
It's working out pretty well for them with the way that this draft has gone so far, knowing that they're going to want to prioritize the likes of the jungler. Was surprised to see the top lane priority come through, but I do like here that they've gone for the Rakan. Out of the Nautilus and the Rakan, I feel like Rakan will do a lot more to disrupt these team fights than the likes of the Nautilus, particularly, you know, likes of charming the Ornn, getting on to the Misfortune in the back line, or even just getting towards that Zoe. The pick potential is super good as well.
Yeah, but during the laning phase, certainly not a fun one. LvMao will be able to just smack Maestro with his shield every single time he wants to try and achieve anything. But across the board now, we have our compositions locked in. There is a lot of mid-game power for VG.
Heaps of mid-game power. That's why you pick the... Well, Hysterics likes to call it the hot pot, the melting pot between Jarvan and Rumble. This is such a strong combo, and you pair that with an Aphelios. Super strong front line, a lot of engage, a lot of control to let the Aphelios do, well, Season 10 things. When you're looking at JDG's side, though, they've got some great early game potential. Rek'Sai will dictate the pace of this jungle, can start to set up Yagao, as we talked about, to get those early roams down to the bottom side. And they can do quite a bit of work with this Zove if she gets ahead. And if they can use that misfortune, that 2-item spike we always talk about with that champion.
We'll see if they can get to that 2-item spike and what they're going to be able to do with it. But Aphelios spikes in a very similar way, it has to be said. They both want those BF swords, and they both want to follow up with the damage off the back of that one. I'm expecting some skirmishes here, not just because of the compositions, because of the styles of these two teams. JDG, they don't often let an objective go without a fight, and I just want to see some action after that last series.
Well, why would you let an objective go when you could just win the fight and then win the game? Like, I feel like that's the JDG mentality. I'm down for that after the last game we had.
Yeah, I'm completely down for that kind of mentality here in the LPL, and I want you guys at home to keep your eyes on iBoy here. He's got Maestro back in the bottom lane. That weakness has been shored up a little bit, and he's got an Aphelios to work with as well. If there's ever a time to step up, if there's ever a game where you are set up to succeed, this is the one for iBoy.
This has got to be iBoy's moment. This is where I mean, look, we talked about in week 1 coming into this. Vici is a team where new legacies are trying to be born. iBoy separating from ADG, coming into Vici. You've got, as well, also Coma coming across from SKT, wanting to create a new dynasty here in the LPL. Hasn't come forward for them yet. Only a single win on the board. They want to try and push that forward as much as possible.
Yeah, and with a new coach coming on in like Coma, obviously, he's a storied veteran, 3-time world champion coach, but it's going to take a bit of time for that to actually impact the roster. So a few people are saying maybe this is a summer split roster. Maybe that's the kind of situation we'll be looking at. But there's definitely some power in this roster. There's definitely potential there. And I just want to see at least glimmers of that. If this is a summer roster, then I need to see a taste of that in spring.
And look, it seems to be just the laning phase is going well for both Zeka and for iBoy in a lot of situations. And once they get out of lane, that's where everything starts to fall apart. They can't find a foothold. People are getting caught out. And the decision-making around these big objectives just isn't quite there. And against a team like JDG, as he said, who loves to fight, loves to scrap when they get the opportunity, if you're not reading from the same hymn sheet, you give JDG the opportunity to pounce, you're going to know all about it.
Yeah, if you're not reading from the same hymn sheet, then JDG will be singing, because they're going to be going all the way in, and they want to fight. And I do believe we have a bit of a pause, so we'll just be chatting away a little bit more before we get this game underway. But it has to be said, coming on into this one, the expectation is that JDG are very much the favorites. When you look at the previous scores coming into this one, JDG are 3-1 on the scoreboard, VG are 1-3. It's opposite sides of the table. And you have to say that JDG, especially with Kanavi versus Cheiftain, they're going to be looking to put the foot down and be the ones in the driver's seat.
Yeah, look, Cheiftain, when Cheiftain first came into the LPL back when he was playing on BLG, he looked incredibly strong. He was actually paired with Mole back in the day. And these two looked like the next massive duo for the LPL. But that hasn't been the case. Cheiftain, well, both Cheiftain and Mole, as the split started to progress, both fell off, and they were still looking with their hands in their hair going, well, what are we supposed to do here? Whereas Mole has had a bit of a resurgence on V5, looking good there, but being on V5. Cheiftain hasn't really had the same success. He's now coming across, was dropped to BLG's Academy roster, now onto Vici's Gaming roster. Oh yeah, I want to see what he can do. I want to see what this guy is actually capable of.
Well, it's time to find out as we head onto Summoner's Rift, and he's alongside Zeka now. The duo that he's a part of has changed, and we'll see if he can change according to it as well. Zeka has been impressive, though, since he stepped onto this roster from the side of Vici Gaming. And we'll see if he can continue that progress.
And right now, he's looking to have his influence known on the rest of the map. Predator Rumble in the mid lane. He's not looking for the poke with the Comet. He's not looking for the healing and all that good jazz we've seen with Conqueror. This guy wants to get down and help iBoy in this bottom lane.
Yeah, he wants to start some fights here. We could well see that coming on through. The rest of his team all going to be going with Conqueror. And Conqueror just such a strong keystone. It's going to be available for most of these characters. 705 going to be going for the grasp on the Ornn.
See, iBoy and Maestro giving a fake leash there as well, whereas Jarvan's actually going to start a leash by himself. So this means that Cheiftain should have control of this early game as to where he wants to go for and throw Kanavi into a bit of a loop if they can do this properly.
We'll see if we see any trickery out of Cheiftain off the back of this fake bottom star, if you will.
It should give an early level 2 gank to topside a lot more potential. I wasn't sure if that was where he's going to go, try and give Cube a bit of a buff up in this lane, just to start the snowball going for the Aatrox. But instead it looks like he wants to try and have the bot lane push in, then utilize that bounce back and go for a sneaky gank into this bottom lane.
Well, iBoy and Maestro, they're the ones with priority in the bottom lane. They hit the level 2 first, and you can see full respect from JDG's bottom lane. But now Cheiftain will be moving towards this bottom side, as you were talking about. He'll be able to grab his red buff. We'll see if he does go for anything, as the wave should bounce in their favor.
Pings are going down onto both the camps on that bottom side as well. Vici know that JDG are not here, so they can potentially make something work, but actually looks like Cheiftain is trying to just farm up all of his camps instead.
So I think this is perfectly reasonable as well. You have to bear in mind that going for a strategy like this, where you kind of conceal information a little bit, while you can make something happen off the back of that, you don't necessarily have to. Just forcing a play for the sake of forcing a play is not necessarily the move.
I'd agree, since the bounce back hasn't quite happened for Vici in the bottom side, so going to be just be able to pick up the Scuttle Crab nice and handily. And as we talked about, Kanavi does control this matchup pre-level 6 because just the influence that Cataclysm offers the influence this Cataclysm has in these fights is so much more than what the Rek'Sai can really offer. Plus you've got the backup of the Rumble there. It works a lot better.
Oh, yeah. Have a pretty slow start to things here. As the priority definitely in favor of Vici Gaming down in this bottom lane. The Aphelios just so much early power on that pick, able to really bully his lane opponents. And I think when we look across these two teams, one of the players I want to see a lot out of this game is going to be Yagao. Bear in mind the Zoe was that blind pick in the mid lane, but he's found himself a decent matchup that he can work with. And Yagao has been one of the players on JDG to really make an impact.
It feels in a lot of these scenarios as well, Yagao is calling for things that he thinks will really fit what JDG want to do. They're not going for these counter picks or anything along these lines. It's, I want to play Karma, I want to play the Zoe. And we've seen this again in this matchup. And I think here the big idea, as we said, is have Yagao push in this early game against whatever he might be going into, then have him roam down towards the bottom side. When we look at JDG, we were talking about them moving over to a different style, playing towards Loken, and it's reflected in how much damage that Loken has been dealing for this team. Over 30% of the damage on JDG is dished out by the AD carry. So what was once the Zoom and Yagao show, the Dumpling brothers playing together, has now brought in Loken, who has only joined the team this year, coming over from top esports.
Well, Loken is going full 10.1 here, as he's got 3 Doran's Blades in his inventory on this Misfortune. Maybe meaning perhaps they want to fight for the dragon, need some early power, he feels.
I'd imagine that is going to be the case. Also probably needs a bit of power in this lane, sitting about 10 CS behind at the moment, and the wave that has crashed is definitely not big enough to match up for that. So right now Loken's struggling a little bit in this lane, where realistically LvMao and Loken should be the ones in control of that.
It's been a rough start for them. And quite often this can be the case in the bottom lane. If you don't get priority, if you don't get level 2 first, you can lose control of the lane entirely until things reset and everyone's recalled. And now, when you look at the inventories, that's a BF sword for iBoy and a huge spike.
It is, though, only level 3 for Maestro. Because of the roaming and trying to get vision control, Maestro set himself behind. It has meant that iBoy's got a level advantage, but Loken and LvMao are starting to sit a little bit tankier. So when we look towards the next 2 minutes where this Rift Herald starts to spawn, LvMao will be in a better position than Maestro if he's the one that's roaming.
See who can get off the mark a little bit quicker for them to get towards that dragon. It is on the map, but neither jungle is really looking towards it. They're over on the top side as of right now, and Zeka moving on up as well. going to be able to secure themselves their blue buff. It looks like Kanavi actually going to be gravitating over towards the south side of the map.
They're looking towards that dragon. Want to see if they can get that off the board just before the Rift Tower comes up. With the push that Loken and LvMao have on that bottom side, they can rotate across. Same with Yagao here. This should be JDG forcing the objective pretty quickly before Cheiftain can get down. At this stage, they've realized that he started topside with the pathing that he's done. So they should realize that he's up there again for the respawn on the blue.
I don't know, man. I don't think they care about the dragon. He's just going to be going for the Gromp for now and continuing the jungle clear. We've had some very passive games out today, and it's kind of surprising to see from JDG as well. This is relatively uncharacteristic from them.
That's what I was so surprised at. Like, we've seen them start to go towards these four-man dives. Yagao getting out of the lane. Even Kanavi has been pretty aggressive on a lot of these picks. Especially when you got the Rek'Sai. You've got to start making plays early. You're going to be outscaled. But Kanavi is taking a step back and is not getting involved in these plays.
And now over towards the dragon. There is a control ward in the pit, though. Kanavi will need to make sure that he's cleared all of the vision. He doesn't know there's a ward there. He was just checking to see if Cheiftain had started that objective off. You could see the dot actually starting and restarting the dragon. Is Cheiftain going to clear away vision in Tribrush? He knows there's no ward on the dragon for now, but he won't make a play.
Well, we have hit that crucial 8-minute mark, and nobody's making any moves at the moment. If this is just going to be a case of, you know, JDG's bot lane and Vici's bot lane staying here, Cube should be the one that's in control, but that's why Yagao is now roaming towards the top side to try and make a play.
Cube going to use the World Ender to try and escape. Flashes immediately, but Sleepy Trouble Bubble lands. Minion Wave is going to be there to save him. And that's going to be Yagao just using a second-hand Ignite.
Look at where Kanavi is, though. They realize, hey, look, we can maybe put pressure off of this flash that was used. Cheiftain started up the dragon, so will be Rift going across to JDG.
Yeah, trade of objectives once again. Dragon this time for Vici Gaming. It's going to be Kanavi starting off the Herald. Although, is he just going to stop this?
I think he is, yeah. He's too afraid.
But why?
I think it's LvMao was back in base. Maestro had started to roam up and they didn't know where he was. So they weren't certain if they were just going to get collapsed on too quickly. And not really the damage that you would have liked from Kanavi and 705 to try and take that objective.
Fair enough.
Free dragon for Vici.
Fair enough. Very nicely done by Vici and Kanavi. I was singing his praises coming on into this series, but he's not really been able to have an impact so far. And the fact that he doesn't get the Herald, he has actually started it up again now, because LvMao came out from the base. It's all completely envisioned, though. There's a ward there, spotting this whole situation out. Zeka nearly stepping into the bubble.
Look at where iBoy is, though. He started to collapse first. If they can get into this, JDG will lose out in the 4v5. And Vici now, they're the ones that are on the Herald, and they've managed to keep it leashed.
This will be massive if they're able to get the dragon and the Herald.
No ultimate on Ornn.
That's going to be the eye going down. I didn't quite see which team managed to grab it. I think it's Vici Gaming. Cheiftain wants it real bad, and he's going to get it for himself. Now the fight ensues. LvMao, he's always the one on the front line to start these engages, but can't find his target. Vici Gaming get the dragon and the Herald.
And do a good job to disengage in that scenario as well. Because they used the Ornn ultimate in that previous play to try and pick onto Cube, wasn't available for this fight. And Vici reaped the benefits. They're moving around this map a lot better than JDG, whereas we were talking about JDG being the ones that we expect to take this early game.
Yeah, Vici Gaming. Nice controlled gameplay as well, reading the situation very well and playing accordingly to that. And it's almost surprising that they don't just go for this one. LvMao especially. You know this guy for an aggressive support player. He wants to make things happen. Loken feeling the pressure of this Aphelios pick at the top lane as iBoy. He wants some plays.
Multiple members from Vici moving up to this top side. If it is just going to be Loken that's sitting here, they can potentially go for the dive. Super great setup with Maestro and for Cheiftain as well. But instead it looks like they're going to be a little bit risk averse and stay back.
It's interesting as well to see Vici Gaming on blue side here. Whenever they get the choice, they will opt to go for that red side. Obviously, They don't get the choice in the first game. And so far, so good when it comes to their blue side draft. It seems to have worked out for them. And focus on Zeka. Once again, this guy was handpicked by the staff of Vici Gaming to step on into the roster. Getting him the Rumble pick, it's worked out so far. Just going to be farming away safely. Not felt too much pressure from the Zoe of Yagao.
And it wasn't supposed to be Zeka stepping up to the front lines here. It was still supposed to be Forge, but having come in, I've been much happier with the performance Zeka has put in. Doing a lot of work. We had that great Zoe performance come out of him previously. 7-3, I think, was the scoreline, but really looked great. The problem, though, is, again, Vici's not following up when they end up with these great scores. They're actually falling further behind and not taking the likes of these objectives. Now, though, they're in a good spot where they are still putting pressure, but where is this Rift Herald going to go down?
Cheiftain finds himself a blue buff, though, just walks up and smites that one away. That means Yagao going to be struggling for mana just a little bit. Will be able to find himself some honey fruit. But you rightly mentioned that the Rift Herald's still in the inventory of Cheiftain here. And there's only a minute and a half on these turret plates to get that used.
Which is putting a lot of time pressure onto Cheiftain. No real lanes are in their favor either. It's not like they start roaming people around the map to make the plays. They're still trying to match JDG because they're always slow on the backs. So JDG are getting out of the map first, putting down the, or at least pushing the waves in and making these plays here.
LvMao wants a fight and he's going to look for iBoy here. Does not want to go for the dive though. 705 already set it up on this bottom lane tower. The rest of the squad just going to be rotating on through.
Cheiftain shouldn't be trying to answer this. He should be going mid to try and put pressure on that mid lane turret. Instead, JDG are getting free turrets and still this Rift Herald isn't being used.
It's going to time out at this rate. And in the meantime, by the way, Cube just soaking up some turret plates. Now it's time for a fight. It's 705 going to kick things off, knocking up Cheiftain. They back away in the end. JDG trying not to be too aggressive, trying to make sure that they don't end up throwing anything, but Maestro has found Loken. The knockup doesn't land though, and now Loken gets away. LvMao onto the backline. Bullet time is huge. Cheiftain jumps right into it and he kills himself. It's 2 kills for Kanavi. And now the answer, Zeka's here. He doesn't really have the damage to follow up here. It's just the carries. iBoy chunked out. And VG will have to back off.
Cube is late to the party, and with the death timer on Cheiftain, that Rift Herald is going to time out without being used. There it pops. And Vici, we said that yes, they can play this early game. They can start to get themselves ahead, but it's decisions like this which means they can't push their advantages forward.
Well, unfortunate situation there, and especially the re-engage. Kanavi manages to get 2 kills out of that. It's going to be a significant advantage coming out for JDG. The question will be, how can Kanavi snowball that gold lead that he found for himself? You can see on the turret plates, not too far from even, just 100 gold in favor of JDG. And that just shows the pace that we've been seeing so far in this game. Kanavi, though, he's got his Warrior's Enchant, he's got a Phage, and he'll be looking towards the Black Cleaver, but starting up this Dragon.
Everyone from JDG is here. Cube does have his teleport to join this fight, but it looks like Vici not in a position to contest. No ultimates on either of the duo lanes or Cheiftain or Zeka. Just going to back away.
Yeah, the TP from 705. He was down in that bottom side just to guarantee that objective. Cube will now have a teleport advantage. But with the Dragon not available for the next few minutes, the question will be, what can he use that for?
Well, that's the big thing, is maybe for the Rift Herald, but that's, as you're going to see, the swap that's coming through from Vici right now, where iBoy and Maestro are going to go towards the top side. But honestly, if you're JDG, well, you've just seen what they do with the Rift Herald. It's not a particularly terrifying factor. And as well, with the way that the waves are pushing the bottom side, 705 could potentially stick around for their initial spawn of this Rift Herald, take the fight, and then just walk bot. You're fine giving up a wave or two.
And this is kind of sad to see for Vici Gaming. They have such a great start where they take the Dragon and they take the Herald. Really good map play and it looks amazing. And then nothing happens with the Herald. They lose a fight in the bottom lane and suddenly it feels like maybe this is just a tiny glimmer of goodness. Maybe they can't follow up. However, they are going to be the ones with priority on this Herald. Hopefully this is one that they can work with.
JDG are late to the play. They knew that Rift Herald was going to be started up by Vici, but couldn't get across in time. Now Cheiftain trying to see if he can get in behind here.
Nice trouble bubble onto Zeka, but obviously can't follow up on that one. Would be very dangerous to try. Maestro is going to be there. Now the Herald dropped in the mid lane.
It's dropped very early. No turret place to keep it up, so potentially they'll be able to take it with this Rift Herald. We'll go very low. Yeah, they will be able to take it.
Yeah, 1 on 2 more autos will finish the job. 705 not nearby, so JDG can't force the issue on the fight for now. Kanavi will be a very important factor for the fights here for JDG. He's the one with the gold. He's the one with the early items. So you've got to be keeping your eyes on him and how he postures, and that'll signify whether or not they're going to go for something.
I don't know where JDG are going to try and posture to at all here. No real Rift Heralds, no real objectives to try and force people around. So at the moment, it is just going to be sit and farm, wait until this dragon pops up. Unless they can try and make some cute play with Yagao picking off someone in on a flank position. Possibly, but that's still a big ask when you've got turrets galore on the map for Vici.
Zeka's going to be alone in the bottom side of the map, and Kanavi's head on down there. Maybe they can make some kind of dive play. LvMao going to be trying to hold off the enemy team, but it's been spotted by VG and answered as well. Yagao at least will get some time onto this turret. Might be able to finish this one off with the procs of his auto attacks.
I'm surprised to see Vici not try and contest that, or at least do something to answer for it. They've got Cube on the top side, but Ornn is also hovering mid here to see if they can make a play.
Going on to Cheiftain, he gets the flag and drag. And 705 can't connect the second part of his ultimate.
So Cube should be able to answer the tower in the bot side of the map with that in the top tower. He's already done a decent chunk of work onto that. So now we're looking at trades across the board. It's going to be 2 towers going in favor of Vici, with only the singular one picked up for JDG.
Slow start to things here for both of these teams.
What happened? This was supposed to be the series. This was the redemption arc for the LPL. What are we going to tell all the new viewers, Munch?
To watch out for when we have FPX playing later.
True.
Not today,
That's
but,
right, yeah.
but later in the week. FPX still exists, guys, and they're still just as aggressive as ever.
RNG. FPX and RNG. So that is going to be our match of the week. Make sure you are tuning in to keep your eyes on that one. That's going to dictate quite a lot of our table, actually. It's
kind of funny, isn't it, how dramatically the playstyles differ between the teams in the LPL.
Yeah. Long gone are the days of everyone just knuckle up and fight. There actually is quite a bit of push and pull, and teams are starting to take on a much more macro-focused role. And I think 10.1 was really the one that pushed it over the edge, where teams were like, okay, this is actually a style we can play.
Cheiftain dodges away from the paddle star there. Keeps himself safe and sound. Next Drake will be spawning in 20 seconds time. That could be the opportunity for JDG to try and force their will on VG. 705 has rotated down to this part of the map. But Cube is here to match him as well. Despite having the teleport available, he's actually going to walk all the way down. The turret taken by minions in the top side. Cheiftain goes in onto LvMao. Nothing too much going to come of this one. Just trading blows between the two teams. iBoy dishing out damage on 705 though. There's a nice little auto onto Loken.
Should give them control over this dragon, though. You don't really want to be approaching this, because Zeka and Cheiftain have still got that combo. If you're moving into these tight corridors, it makes it so much easier for them to land those big ultimates.
Here we go, Cataclysm onto Loken. We've got a fight finally on our hands. Cheiftain has to use his stopwatch as Maestro gets a charm onto everybody, and it's a kill immediately for Yagao. That kill is going to be the signal for VG to back away.
And I feel like this is the story of Vici. We keep building them up. We keep saying they got a chance, and they keep disappointing. Dragon will go over in favor of JDG. Maestro, you got to be careful. You can't position in that scenario against the zone.
Yeah, won't be able to do anything there, and it's a Dragon going the way of JDG. That's 2 for them now. And you can see a couple of pings over towards the top side of the map. Bear in mind, Baron is available. If you do go too aggressive now, either of these teams can turn onto the objective.
I don't think there is much of an opportunity. Now, that being said, JDG have slipped on the last Rift Herald where we thought they were going to have control of it. And when you've got an Aphelios, you always got to be careful of that quick two-man Baron. But you can see here, Cheiftain is not tanky enough to be the forerunner in these engages. They're able to kite back, and I think this is a big call from his build path right now. Has got the Cinder Hulk, or well, not the Cinder Hulk, but the Bami Cinder even completed for the jungle item. But the big problem that I'm seeing is not that Gargoyle Stoneplate build. If you're going to be the one that's engaging here for your team, you've got to have that tanky stats to allow Zeka to set up, to get iBoy involved as well. But that's not what we're seeing coming through.
It's not what we've been seeing so far. Maybe he can tech into that later on. I don't know. You tell me, Doctor.
I hope he does. I mean, you've got the broken stopwatch. In theory, that's where you're supposed to be going, but he's got double Ruby Crystal, and I'm not entirely sure why.
That's a sneaky trouble bubble that's going to ruin Chieftain's day. Flag Drag finally comes on through, but Kanavi wants this one. Flashes for the knockup. He should be able to finish the kill off as well. Maestro now, the next one to be caught out. Another bubble comes through from Yagao, and the follow-up's there. Maestro's so low. Zeka with a great equalizer deters the engage. LvMao could look for a dive here. 7:05 will get the knock-up onto iBoy. The bullet time to follow up, and iBoy barely walks away. Maestro escapes as well, with JDG now with complete control.
They're moving directly towards the Baron. Multiple low health bars on Vici. They won't be able to get back out for this, but instead it looks like JDG are comfortable enough to just take that mid turret. Now start to set up with the vision that they have complete control of in and around this objective.
Nice little pickup from them.
This is the problem for JDG side is, whereas we were talking about how quick the Baron can be from Vici, it's a relatively slow Baron from JDG. Zoe doesn't do a huge amount. Misfortune isn't quite what you want to try and take that objective down. So JDG a little bit hesitant on going for the big objective.
And now off the back of these resets, JDG are going to step into a lot of power. You're going to see in a moment that this Misfortune with the BF sword already in her inventory will be able to turn that into an Infinity Edge, you'd imagine. And then, obviously, we've got a Ornn on that side of the table. So once he gets just one more level behind him, he'll be able to turn it into the Molten Edge. That'll be a huge amount of team fight power available.
Yeah, timing should set up nicely for them. Never seen JDG coming back onto the map. With the earlier backs from Vici, they should be the ones getting control around this Baron, with JDG then looking to clear it out. But Vici actually haven't done a good job of clearing out the vision here. So it means it's a lot easier for JDG to walk in because they know the movements of Vici in that river.
Yeah, now, unfortunately for Loken, he didn't have enough gold to finish off his Oh, Yagao actually just going to get aggressed upon. We see the hot pot coming on through. Yagao very, very low and doesn't have a stopwatch to work with. Now onto LvMao, forced to flash away.
We finally see some life out of Vici. This is one of the fantastic things about having a Jarvan is how long that engage can be. You saw it come to choice there where Yagao burnt the flash earlier on with the equalizer from Zeka, and now they get to follow up on it and get control back around the Baron.
You see Cube going down towards the bottom lane to try and punish here. There will be no one to answer him, so maybe he can get some pressure on towards this turret. He has his teleport available.
I'm not sure why they didn't turn on to Baron there. They've got their Crescendum available from iBoy, so they can rip through it pretty quickly. And as well, you still got some great flag and drags. You've got good TP setup for Cube. It feels like a bit of a missed opportunity there with Yagao going down.
Yeah, it doesn't really turn into anything. That's the big issue that we're seeing here. It's kind of been a theme of today, actually, hasn't it?
A wee bit.
40 seconds until the next Drake is going to be on the map. And once again, it's these Cloud Drakes. The Cloud Soul, probably the least influential soul, but the Drakes themselves, that ult CDR, can really impact a fight, especially when you've got things like the Ornn in the game, things like the Rumble in the game.
Dragon spawn in just a couple of seconds. Means that Vici should be able to pick this up. They're doing a good job of getting their waves in order, particularly down that bottom side. So Cube could just solo this out while they hold on to pressure up towards the Baron. But JDG finally taking that last outer turret down. This is going to make things a lot easier for this Baron control.
Cheiftain just going to be able to grab this Drake completely uncontested, I guess. JDG seemingly uninterested in dragons.
Look, they're pesky things anyway, you know. Who would want them?
So, explain this to me, Doctor. Is that just a macro misplay coming out from JDG, or were their priorities somewhere else? Because it feels to me like there wasn't a significant advantage for Vici Gaming,
So,
aside from maybe back timings.
in theory, Vici will pick it up anyway. Cube can solo it out. 705 can't actually face off against Cube in the side lanes right now, so the wave will always push in, Cube backs and picks it up, and then you're still in the same scenario. But LvMao had just placed all of his wards, he was forced to back, so even though it looks like JDG didn't get anything, they have got vision control back around this Baron objective, and Vici, pretty much whenever Cube is on this bottom side, will have control of that dragon.
Fair enough. So it's more about the macro play around the bottom lane. It's actually about the top laners, despite it being Cheiftain that gets the dragon. So the more you know, guys. We learned something today. In the meantime, though, as you say, JDG managing to get vision control of the Baron area, but they're not the ones with the Aphelios, so they can't just sneak this one away.
See, the thing is, they're the ones with the Ornn, though. They should be able to push in, try and draw Vici into an unfavorable team fight. With all their flashes coming back up, I think that's what they're going to go for. They're just worried that, look, if Cheiftain comes in with Zeka once again, Yagao could be the target and we lose our Zoe right off the bat. With those flashes up now, this is where I want to see them start to be more aggressive. Push out the bottom lane, have 705 join with the team, and then look to make a play so he can force the teleport out of Cube.
Yagao clearing out mid, now moving over towards the rest of his team as Vici Gaming positioning pretty aggressively. Cheiftain, oh, actually, Trouble Bubble lands very, very late. It was literally just Maestro walking into it after the fact.
So this is actually a bit of a mistake from Vici not having Cube in this bottom lane. We were just saying that what JDG want to do is have an excuse to get Cube to join with the team. Well, Cube's just giving it to them. Now they don't have to worry about the teleport disadvantage on 705, and they can just look to pick the fight.
We're looking for an ARAM here as everybody groups up in the mid lane. Chieftain's off to the side. He wants a way into the fight, but he's been spotted for now. JDG won't be caught out unawares. 705 obviously does have that Call of the Forge God available if they want to try and force the issue.
Well, could get onto Zeka and Cheiftain here, very much separated from the team. Never mind. They're going to walk away.
Now, Yagao is on his Zoe, which I do want to mention in case... Oh, actually, no. Here we go. As soon as I start the story, the fight always kicks off. Maestro knocked up.
But it doesn't.
And
that's
the fight
thing.
doesn't kick off.
It's what they do. They make
bait
you
me.
think
They
it's
bait
going
me
to
every
start.
time. Well,
Yeah.
Yagao, he has his Zoe pick, as I was saying, Dagda.
Okay.
He actually currently has the record in the LPL for the highest damage percentage on Zoe. Yagao, speaking of which, is going to get cooked alive by this equalizer. Maestro going to flash over the wall and gets it with the Glimmer Quill. Very nicely done. Now Q pressuring on towards this bottom lane tower. Still 2 minutes until the Drake, but at least some pressure for VG. They
should all be on this bottom lane tower. If they can get this, rotate back towards Baron, well then this is absolutely fantastic. They've now got, instead of Q putting pressure onto a tier 2, he's putting pressure onto an inhibitor turret. But instead, they want to see if they can crack open this mid inhib. There's too much wave clear coming through from Loken. You're not really going to be able to do it. And now they haven't got the bottom lane either.
Well, let's find out. The bullet time used pretty early, actually. So maybe with these couple of minions, they're going to be able to just about finish this tower off. And I like the aggressive posture there from Maestro and from Cheiftain saying, hey, if you contest this, we are going to fight you.
Well, they now come back towards this Baron. Again, this is just seems to be rinse and repeat here. Vici will get a little bit this time around, but not committing to objectives, not wanting to take a step too far in case that team fighting we were talking about from JDG can turn this game back in their favor.
Isn't it hilarious that Coma comes in to the LPL, picks up a squad in Vici Gaming, and then immediately their style becomes slow, macro-focused gameplay. This is basically the Korean Chinese squad now.
And I mean, it's the same with BLG. They've got Coach Sim. He's coming across from Korea as well. Used to be on Najin back in the day, so it just seems to be the thing that happens.
Going for the slower play styles, but I mean, it's worked out a little bit more for BLG than it has for VG so far. The VG with the advantage in this game specifically, but the gold basically even, only 500 ahead for them. 705 wants to start a fight. Call of the Forge God comes on through, gets the knock up onto iBoy, and there's a solar flare into Zeka. Has to use his cleanse immediately.
Vici are doing a great job of kiting back from the engage JDG have though. So Loken's not able to set up. Yagao can't follow up with the damage, and now they're the ones in the driving seat because of all the ultimates that were used in that engage.
They're certainly trying their hardest. They keep on giving it a go on these engages.
Sneaky.
Trouble Bubble doesn't go on in, and 705 is pretty lonely here. Might just be the one to go down. Has a stopwatch. Cheiftain goes with the Cataclysm. It's going to be a trade 1-for-1 so far, as LvMao will fall as well. And VG are all over this fight. Loken running for his life as Yagao is the target. Jumps out of the chains, but he will be taken down nonetheless. And now it's Kanavi. Has to use a stopwatch, but he will fall after the fact. And now onto the inhibitor.
There's still 40-second death timers. They can push through a lot. There's minions here for them.
This could actually just be the end of the game. This would be insane. What a way to accelerate things here for Vici Gaming. And I was mockingly talking about the Korean coach, but understanding your limits and understanding when you can force the issue is very much a strength of the Korean teams. Loken flashing away. One Nexus turret down, but they can't quite finish it. They decide to back away.
LvMao is up, which means that they're not going to look for too much in these scenarios. Want to see if they can back towards the Baron, back towards a Cloud. But the big thing here is they haven't backed yet, and now you got the teleport from 705. They want to collapse on Vici before they get the return.
And the home guard's in play as well. Zeka flashes out to safety. Won't be able to find anything there. iBoy doing a little bit of damage to 705, but it's time for the Baron play. It's time to accelerate this game.
This is the tempo play because the backs haven't quite come through yet. The gold hasn't been spent. This is why they maybe want to go for JDG.
Here we go. Zeka is not in this fight right now, and it's a knock-up onto quite a few people. Cheiftain getting very low right at the start of the fight, and it'll be LvMao to finish off the kill, but it's traded immediately, and it's utter chaos across the fight as we see Cube going nuts on the Aatrox. He's doing so much work for his team, and JDG scatter to the winds.
iBoy wasn't in the beginning of that fight, comes in later as part of the cleanup crew, and once again, JDG are routed. Upset City here in the LPL. Vici might pick up the game here.
We're finally seeing, I was saying it right before the game, I want to see glimmers of what this summer team could be, and maybe it's a macro-focused dominant force in the form of Vici Gaming. Cube doing absolute work. He's looking for LvMao. He gets a bonus kill, and it's going to be game one going the way of Vici Gaming.
Confident form from Vici Gaming there as they take down the Nexus.
What a performance in the end from Vici Gaming. It didn't look super strong throughout the entire game, but it did look controlled. It looked like they were taking the fights when they wanted. As you mentioned during the game, consistent disengage, consistently denying JDG their win conditions.
And I felt like JDG never tried to make anything happen. Talking about Kanavi having the advantage in the Rek'Sai in the early game, never really went for a gank. Then we're looking towards how they can start to move around with the Ornn, start to use him on the side lane to put pressure, to join in the team, missed ultimates across the board. It was not what we expected at all from this JDG side.
JDG really struggling to have an impact in this one, and Kanavi especially. He got the 2 kills very early on the Rek'Sai, couldn't really turn that into very much for himself, and you can see the gold was in favor of them for the majority of that mid game, but once it came to those team fights, it all went the way of VG. iBoy with the damage on the Aphelios, but it has to be said, Cube's Aatrox in those team fights looked amazing.
Really did, and for someone that we literally pointed out and said Cube has not been performing, well, that's one way to shut us up. Fantastic performance from the top laner from Vici. As well, the compact just birding between Cheiftain and Zeka in these fights was setting up so well for iBoy. We talked about how that dynamic would work. You saw it on your screens.
Yagao, a valiant effort there on the Zoe, but nowhere near enough to win them the game. And again, I said it during the cast, great decision making from Vici Gaming to make the call and say, hey, we can force the issue here. We've got a small advantage. Let's turn it into an objective. Let's turn it into an inhibitor, and then eventually turn it into a one game.
And they did so well, and as we said, kiting back in these team fights. We were talking about JDG, that's their strength. That's where they start to rule the litter. But it was them walking back Vici, not giving them the opportunity to utilize these big ultimates, and then swinging in with the right hook of the engage coming through from Cheiftain, the follow-up from Cube. It was immaculate to watch.
It really was. Phenomenal play coming out from the entire squad, and the Rumble especially, the damage coming out during those team fights. Really great equalizers coming out from Zeka. And now, as you look at the draft, you have to wonder, what did JDG do in game number 2 to try and change things up? Because when you talk about hard engage, they had the composition for it.
I think I want to see them go back. Get rid of this Ornn, just ban it off the board. Go for Renekton. 705 looks great on this. It solidifies a lot of the issues that are there where they couldn't deal with Cube on the Aatrox. Give them something that can at least fight or scrap a little bit better. Keep those waves even and then join into the team fights. Ornn doesn't do that. You need him there. You need him to be that pick engage tool. And when you're looking for the Zoe and the Misfortune, there's no follow-up there for the Ornn in that team fight.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, the Misfortune can be great follow-up, but only in the right scenario. It's very much a matter of, is the bullet time available? Are they all grouped up? Okay, I'm the best AD carry in the game. If those prerequisites aren't met, suddenly it can feel a little bit lackluster.
Yeah, and we saw that exactly there. It was Loken running away, still at the bullet time, still at the bullet time, still at the bullet time, and eventually they actually managed to throw it out, but unfortunately the entire team is dead at that point.
Yeah, well, unfortunate start for JDG, but Vici Gaming looking pretty good in game number 1. Let's see.